There's a quiet realization some people have that they almost never say out loud. It doesn't happen in public. It doesn't happen during conversation. It happens in the silence between moments, when the noise fades and something uncomfortable becomes clear. They feel calmer with distance than with closeness, not because they hate people, not because they think they're better than anyone else, but because being around others feels heavier than it should. It drains them. It confuses them. Sometimes it even makes them doubt themselves. If you've ever hesitated before walking into a room full of voices, if you've ever taken a longer route just to avoid running into someone, if you've ever felt pressure rise in your chest when someone asks a simple, harmless question, then you already understand this feeling. And no, it isn't hatred. It's something quieter, more layered, something most people don't know how to explain. Many people who say they dislike people don't actually dislike people at all. They dislike what people pull out of them. They dislike the roles they're expected to play, the emotional adjustments they're required to make, the invisible calculations running in the background of every interaction. Be softer here. Hold back there. Don't say that. Smile now. React correctly. Every interaction becomes a negotiation between authenticity and acceptance. And for some people, that negotiation becomes exhausting. To understand the psychology behind this, you have to go deeper than labels like introverted or socially reserved. Those explanations are too shallow. In reality, many of the people who claim they dislike people are highly observant, deeply sensitive, and unusually thoughtful. They don't dislike connection. They dislike the emotional labor attached to it. When they enter a room, their mind doesn't just see faces. It reads signals, tone, posture, energy shifts, unspoken expectations. They absorb it all at once. For them, the world doesn't whisper. It shouts. Imagine standing in front of dozens of screens, each playing something different, all demanding attention at the same time. That's what social environments feel like to them. Most people don't experience the world this way, so they don't understand why it's so draining. Psychology calls this emotional overstimulation, not a disorder, not a weakness, just a heightened sensitivity. People who experience it need more space than others, not because they're rejecting humanity, but because they're regulating themselves. Too much emotional input destabilizes their inner world, so they pull back, not as rejection, as survival. But sensitivity isn't the whole story. For some, distance feels safer because people have been a source of confusion or disappointment before. Not dramatically, quietly, repeatedly. They learn that conversations often come with hidden meanings. That kindness can be conditional. That trust can disappear without warning. Over time, distance becomes a buffer, not isolation. A small emotional space where they can breathe without being watched, judged, or misunderstood. Then there's the pressure society places on everyone to be endlessly friendly, endlessly patient, endlessly available. For some people, this expectation feels unnatural. They aren't energized by small talk. They aren't fulfilled by surface-level interaction. They crave depth, meaning, truth. And because those conversations are rare, they often choose solitude over shallow connection. Not because they dislike people, because they value authenticity. This creates a paradox. Many people who say they dislike people actually crave connection, just not the kind they keep finding. They want conversations without performance, closeness without pressure, affection without obligation, silence that feels safe, not awkward. Those connections exist. They're just rare. So until they find them, solitude becomes a temporary shelter. Another layer of the psychology is something called protected detachment. It forms when someone learns that lowering their guard comes at a cost. So they build a shield, not out of anger, out of caution. They move quietly. They observe more than they engage. They seem distant, uninterested, even cold. But inside, their mind is constantly asking the same questions. Is this safe? Is this genuine? Will this drain me? If the answer isn't clear, they step back. And stepping back becomes a habit. What most people miss is that these individuals often have rich inner worlds. Their thoughts are vivid. Their imagination is active. Their reflection is constant. Because of this, the outer world feels less necessary. Their solitude isn't empty. It's full of ideas, memories, questions, possibilities. So when someone tries to pull them out of that inner space too quickly, it feels disruptive, not inviting. There's a quiet truth here. Solitude feels safe to people who have learned that being misunderstood hurts more than being alone. And for those who perceive deeply, misunderstanding is almost inevitable. Silence gets labeled as coldness. Calmness gets mistaken for disinterest. Distance gets read as rejection. In reality, these individuals often care deeply. They just express it quietly, from afar, through thoughtfulness, not noise. But they don't want permanent distance. They want closeness that doesn't drain them, connection that allows them to stay themselves. They want people who understand that silence can be comfort. That presence doesn't always require words. And beneath their calm exterior is depth most people never see. What they crave more than anything is emotional freedom. Freedom to think without performing, to feel without explaining, to exist without adjusting. Because that freedom is rare, they protect themselves until they find it. Interestingly, not all of this comes from pain. Some people feel overwhelmed by others simply because they're wired inward. Reflection is their default. Quiet is where clarity comes from. Social interaction for them is like a busy street. Stimulating, interesting, but not somewhere they want to live. Another key factor is stimulation threshold. Some people thrive in high-energy environments. Others reach overload quickly. They need stillness the way others need movement. Silence the way others need sound. Asking them to socialize constantly is like asking someone to run a marathon every day. They might manage it, but the cost would be enormous. So why do they say, I dislike people? Because it's easier than explaining complexity. Easier than saying, I feel overwhelmed by the layers beneath every interaction. Easier than admitting, I don't know how to connect without losing parts of myself. It's simpler to blame the world than to explain the inner struggle. Here's the irony. Many of these individuals are deeply compassionate. Not loudly, quietly. They care about fairness, sincerity, respect. They feel emotions in high resolution. Even when their face shows nothing, they're highly self-aware. They analyze their reactions. They question their discomfort. They don't move through life on autopilot. And sometimes that awareness itself becomes overwhelming. They feel too much inside to handle too much outside. Yet, many of them love humanity in a broader sense. Human stories, creativity, resilience. They enjoy observing people from a distance, understanding how minds work. They struggle not with humans as a concept, but with humans as a responsibility. That's why their circle is small, not because they dislike people, because they value authenticity too deeply to fake connection. And when they do trust someone, they become extraordinary listeners, attentive, empathetic, gentle. They don't connect often, but when they do, it's profound. Inside them is a constant tension, safety and solitude, longing for understanding, protecting peace, wanting closeness. They walk a narrow line between isolation and connection, hoping for someone who proves that closeness doesn't always take energy. Some people give it. Disliking people isn't really about people. It's about protection, energy, boundaries, self-preservation. They don't push people away because they feel nothing. They do it because they feel everything. And when the right person finally enters their life, something shifts. The world feels quieter. Connection feels lighter. Conversation feels natural. They realize something important. They never disliked people. They just needed the right ones.